Coming up on the program today, the weather worsens in Australia as more people are evacuated from their homes. Britain is worried about the third wave of coronavirus in Europe hitting the country as Britain and the EU crash over vaccine exports. Plus, African leaders pay their respects to late Tanzanian leader John Magufuli at his funeral. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Amarachi Ubani in Lagos. Meteorologists in Australia say areas which have seen the worst flooding in decades are bracing for more rainfall. One of those is the entire coast of New South Wales, which has been put on alert, with troops and hundreds of volunteers deployed.
It's Monday, more than 48 hours since heavy rainfall in Australia, but the unrelenting rain has left much livestock dead or stranded, as rising floodwaters have affected the animals. There's been widespread damage and calls for mass evacuation. The Premier of New South Wales says 15,000 people have been evacuated from areas of the mid-north coast of the state, while 3,000 people have been told to leave their houses in Western Sydney.
Inundated at the moment, and the water's still rising. It's come up about a foot in the last hour. Yeah, this is the worst I've seen it. Last year, just after Christmas, it was pretty bad as well, but not this bad.
I'm our first time here, like this one. So what about it? We moved to my car's another place, and also I saw it. My neighbor, they moved to their horses to move to another areas.
There's going to be a lot of people that maybe don't get their houses flooded, but they won't get to work. The roads will be wrecked as well. So it's going to test and give, I think, a lot of people a bit of a wake-up call that they think, no, nature, this and that, but there's people that don't live near here who are going to be affected by it. All these new estates and areas that, as I said, they never built on them because they could be flood affected. Oh, we built the dam bigger, we built lakes, but once they're full, they're full.
Emergency services rescued around 20 dogs from rising floodwaters in Sydney's northwest today. The owners had earlier left with several dogs when told to evacuate, but had a call on New South Wales emergency services to help with moving the remainder of the canines. The heaviest rainfall for the worst affected state of New South Wales is expected overnight into Tuesday morning as two major weather systems collide, and the southern coastal areas could be the worst hit this time. 10 million people remain under warnings in every state and territory except Western Australia. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has also warned that this remains an ongoing situation that is evolving and is extremely dangerous.
EU leaders are planning a meeting for Thursday this week to discuss whether to ban exports of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine to the UK. It claims current arrangements are slowing down its own vaccine rollout, which is slower than the UK's, and the latest flashpoint now seems to be over doses in a Dutch factory. The European Commission president says the EU can forbid vaccines made on the continent being sent to the UK. Is not seeking to do so, it says, but it wants pharmaceutical firms to meet their contractual obligations to the bloc. But the British Prime Minister warns that the third wave of COVID-19 infections sweeping across the continent could be heading towards Britain.
I've talked to our friends, repeatedly over the period. We're all facing the same pandemic. We all have the same problems. I think it's one thing that's worth stressing is that on the continent right now, you can see, sadly, there is a third wave underway, and people in this country should be under no illusions that previous experience has taught us that when a wave hits our friends, it I'm afraid, washes up on our shores as well, and I expect that we will feel those effects in due course. That's why we're getting on with our vaccination program as fast as we can. I'm reassured by talking to EU partners over the last few months that they don't want to see blockades. I think that's very, very important. But clearly, what matters to us in the UK is we get on with the rollout of the vaccine programme. I think we've now done over half the adults in the country, which is very, very good news.
Channel Television's London correspondent Juliana Olayinka joins us now. Juliana, great to see you. And let me know if I'm hitting the spot here when I say that it sounds like the EU blames Britain for the shortage in vaccine production because Britain bought up the vaccines early on to avoid problems with supply.
Well, good afternoon, Amarachi. Well, yes and no. I think if you speak to some pretty angry backbenchers on the Conservative Party, they would completely agree with your sentiment. It appears as if this row that shows no signs of waning is a tit-for-tat between the EU and Britain. But unfortunately, especially for political commentators, it's not that simple. It's much deeper. And it typically is because, unfortunately, for the EU, they had a very, very slow start. They have had delays in production and manufacturing with AstraZeneca from pretty much the get-go. And then let's not forget the massive story last week, which was whether or not the AstraZeneca vaccine was safe. And this all came from Europe. As you were rightly pointing out, this pretty much revolves around one factory in the Netherlands. The EU have yet to regulate this factory for AstraZeneca. And there are about 5 to 10 million doses of Oxford AstraZeneca that are due to come out of that factory and go straight into Britain. But given the fact that we are seeing the death numbers rising in the EU, 21 million people in France have been put back into lockdown. Angela Merkel is talking about rolling back on some of the restrictions that have been eased in Germany. The EU are desperately in trouble. There is a third wave coming. COVID shows no sign of waning, and they want to get their hands on the vaccine. It's as simple as vaccine nationalism, which we've been talking about now for about 8 months.
Yes, and I understand the factory in the Netherlands is hoping the EU will approve its production in a few days, hopefully by the end of this week. Both sides, I'm talking about the EU and Britain now, intend to meet this week to talk about, the issues surrounding vaccine production and distribution. But we're also witnessing here, are we looking at the fallout of Brexit? Because clearly not everything is over between the EU and Britain.
Yeah, I think on social media, perhaps Brexit has been popping up every now and again, but I think on the diplomatic stage, absolutely not. We just heard from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, which you played his soundbite there. He is being very diplomatic. Even though more than half of the British adult population has been vaccinated, he spoke about our friends. He said that a third wave, if it does go through Europe, which we are witnessing, it could potentially affect Britain's, even though Britain is way further ahead with the vaccination rollout. He is being very, very careful because he understands that this is a very inflamed scenario at the moment. People are losing their lives. This is very, very serious. And Britain don't want to be waving the flag and boasting that they're so far ahead because they don't want to tick anybody off, to be quite honest with you. And so there's certainly politics at play. Nobody is mentioning the word Brexit on the diplomatic scene. But as you said earlier, yes, the EU members are going to meet. We know that Boris Johnson spoke to Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron over the weekend. We know they are the big players on the continent. Pretty much what they say goes. And according to reports, they agreed with Ursula von der Leyen. It was a good conversation, but they want to get their people vaccinated. And if that means holding some of the vaccines that are coming to the UK, then so be it.
Brussels does say it's not banning the vaccine exports. It doesn't want to ban them, but it wants pharmaceutical firms to meet their obligations to the bloc. But does its action contradict the impression it's giving to the UK at the moment?
Yes, I think it is contradictory, although, again, Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, she has said that the EU bloc have exported millions of doses of the vaccine to several other countries. So it's not, they said it's nothing personal, but they are now witnessing a third wave. And because of this particular manufacturing centre in the Netherlands, they're only focusing on that one centre. It is very, very confusing, and it is very conflicting. And again, I think what a lot of the main headlines are missing out on is last week, several European countries stopped using the AstraZeneca vaccine. We've seen pictures showing that some of these vaccination centres are pretty much empty. Not many people are taking it up. Emmanuel Macron very early on said he didn't think the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine was safe. So, you know, they've got a lot of guilt lying on their shoulder. There is a bargaining chip. We know Britain always have a bargaining chip, and that is the Pfizer vaccine. There have been whispers that there is an incredibly important component of the Pfizer vaccine that is made in a factory in Yorkshire. So if this vaccine war does spiral out of control, then Britain do have that in their back pocket to say it's not leaving our shores if you won't let the vaccine leave yours.
Well, Juliana, hopefully it gets simpler by the day. Thanks again for joining us, and do stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
So concern is still rising, just as the number of coronavirus cases in India. The country recorded 260,000 fresh cases last week, one of the worst increases since the pandemic began earlier last year. Experts say poor adherence to safety protocols is driving the surge. Some say new variants could be a reason, but that has not been established yet. But here's more of the situation in other parts of the world.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he plans to get vaccinated against COVID-19 on Tuesday, but that the decision to get vaccinated is purely voluntary for every Russian. He has not specified which of Russia's 3 homegrown vaccines he will take, but he mentions in a televised meeting that his country has signed international agreements to supply doses of the Sputnik V vaccine to 700 million people. German police are carrying out checks on the border with Poland today after Berlin's foreign ministry classified its neighbor as a high-incidence area for COVID-19. The ministry said on its website on Friday that Poland is very severely affected by COVID-19, pointing to an incidence exceeding 200 cases per 100,000 inhabitants over 7 days. Therefore, non-essential tourist travels to Poland is warned against due to high infection rates. Lithuania's president and prime minister today received doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine to demonstrate their confidence in the jab after its use was suspended for 2 days last week. Fewer Europeans trust the vaccine after countries reported potential side effects, such as blood clots, even though scientific studies have found it is safe and effective. Taiwan's premier also received the AstraZeneca jab today, having volunteered to be first in line to underscore government's confidence in the vaccine's safety as the island begins its vaccination campaign. Finally, Thailand has started human trials of a domestically developed coronavirus vaccine and expects to deploy it next year, which its health minister says could give the country more freedom with its vaccine policy. The country's vaccination drive is targeting the inoculation of half of its adult population by the end of the year, using 61 million doses of AstraZeneca's vaccine, which will be locally produced from June.
There's been a huge fire sweeping through a Rohingya refugee camp in Cox's Bazar, southern Bangladesh today, destroying shelters and health centers. Video and pictures online show a huge blaze ripping through the Balukali camp, with people scrambling to recover their possessions amid burning shanties and tents. Rohingya refugees in the camps said many houses were burned down and several people died. In January this year, a huge fire swept through Rohingya camps in the same area, destroying homes belonging to thousands of people. We have more coming up on the world today, including this. It's the future of agriculture. It's already here. Dubai launches seed planting drones. Join us again. Welcome back. African heads of state today paid their last respects to late Tanzanian President John Magufuli, who died last Wednesday of a heart attack. Those present in Dar es Salaam today included the presidents of Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Comoros, Mozambique, Zambia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Today is a public holiday in Tanzania as the country enters a third day of bidding farewell to the late Magufuli.
Family of nations of Africa are today mourning the passing of their own, an esteemed leader of his people and a tireless champion of the cause of African progress.
One tech company in the UAE is taking on a challenge to plant 1 million native trees in the country in 2 years. A company popular for its mobile fuel delivery service is ramping up efforts to contribute to the United Nations 2030 agenda by building a drone which can successfully plant 400 seeds in the desert in 20 minutes. Our correspondent Mayowa Adegoke was at the unveiling of this technology in Dubai and now reports.
Vegetal cover is one way to slow down the effects of climate change, and 1 million trees will play a part in fighting this, desert encroachment, as well as support a sustainable future. Such a vision will definitely require some innovation, and technology comes to the rescue. A drone capable of planting 10,000 seeds in 20 minutes is unveiled by Dubai-based technology company Carrefour.
We are an active member in the United Nations Sustainability Development Goal. So we have a vision of being sustainable here in the UAE, but also taking it beyond borders and really aligning with the 2030 agenda, particularly Sustainability Development Goal number 13 of climate action.
This planting mechanism comprises two main parts: the drone, which is responsible for flight, and the payload used to house seeds and also shoot them into the ground at a 10-meter height.
The drone itself, or the part that is responsible for flight, it's a general purpose drone that you can purchase. It's usually used for cinematography, surveying, but everything that you see underneath the drone, which we refer to as the payload, is manufactured and sourced here in the UAE. This is the system that is responsible for dispatching the seed balls with the force required, and all the electronics, software, and the hardware on the manufacturing of that has been done in the UAE, more specifically at Carrefour.
It is able to carry 400 seeds per mission, which can last up to 30 minutes. Powered by batteries, the drone has an inbuilt camera, which allows a human operator to control navigation. But this may change in time, as the builders are looking to improve on the technology. This solution is homegrown here in the UAE, but how can this help other parts of the world? Think of Africa, think of the Amazons, think of Australia, and even America.
One of the problems we have is obviously climate change, global warming, desertification, and this is where the Raftree project is really playing a part. For us to plant trees in particular areas, these trees to absorb carbon. So for example, the Raftree absorbs approximately 35 kilograms of carbon. So whatever tree we plant using the same methodology, it would do good. And particularly, whether in Africa or in the States or in Asia, I think this project it all plays it's the same role. Using technology for good, planting at speed, planting at scale, and with very minimal human intervention. In the long run, saving a lot of costs, saving time and energy as well.
For effective germination, The seeds, which are geotagged after planting for monitoring, have to be buried 1 centimeter deep under the soil. The drone is able to do this at a speed of 95 meters per second.
It hits the ground at around 80 meters per second. So we are accounting for the loss of speed while it travels from the drone up until it hits the ground due to drag force, air resistance.
CAFU says it will continue to optimize its prototype and scale the project.
Everyone is becoming more tech savvy, so are companies. And what we're trying to do here is play a bigger role in using technology for good in the agricultural industry. So just to give you a bit of context, using traditional planting method, it could take months to plant 4,000 trees. In a matter of minutes, our built-in, in-house built drone technology could do just that. And it's not just about the actual planting, but for each seed ball we plant, we get the geographical location, so at a later date we can assess the plant's health and the plant's count. And right now, all of this is done using a remote control, a computer, and a trigger to dispense. But soon our plan is to really scale horizontally using swarm planting, so more drones, doing it faster, doing it quicker.
Well, if one drone can plant 10,000 seed balls in 20 minutes, think of the possibilities of 1,000 drones, 10,000 drones, what they could do and how that can potentially impact the world at large. From here, Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Mayowa Adigoke for Channels Television.
Thanks a lot, Mayowa. And it's been 5 years since a series of bomb attacks killed 32 people in Brussels Airport and Melbeek Metro Station. The nation is remembering with several ceremonies today. King Philip, Queen Mathilde, and Prime Minister Alexander De Croo paid tribute to the victims with a ceremony at the Monument of Victims of Terror Acts at Rue-le-Droit, just 100 meters away from the European Commission building. Earlier today, they also held a moment of silence at Brussels Airport and Melbeek Metro Station, the 2 spots where suicide bombings took place.
From the depths of our loss, from the injustice of suffering that has been inflicted on so many families, to find the strength to cherish, be gentle, show sincerity. If we succeed to turn closeness, empathy, and love into our response to hate, then we will have won.
And that's it on The World Today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Uvani.